Right. Just to reiterate and perhaps elucidate a bit more clearly, so a fortune subtracted from zero is a debt, and we've covered the sort of algebraic or arithmetic interpretation of that idea. Let's think about it a bit more geometrically. So this positive value, and again, we're discussing this number line, the x-axis, in the context of perhaps dollars, a unit of dollars. So this value, let's just say of $2.5, this amount, subtracted from zero, from the origin, yields a debt in the value of $2.5. Easy enough. Now, inversely, a debt subtracted from zero is a fortune. We've talked about the basic steps to take arithmetically and algebraically to produce a positive number, right? Minus times minus, intuitively, or not intuitively, but academically, we've been taught this as something to accept and something to simply apply, and that's fine. So let's think about geometrically what that might look like. So a debt subtracted from zero is a fortune. So this value, and it's just the inverse, meaning that we're going to be moving again from origin in the opposite direction. A debt in the value of $2.50 minus $2.50, or negative in this case, we know it for certain to be a negative number, negative value. So a debt in the value of $2.50 minus 2.5 subtracted from zero yields a fortune in the amount of $2.50. All right. A fortune subtracted from zero yields a debt of $2.50. A debt in the amount of $2.50 subtracted from zero yields a fortune of $2.50. So we're just considering or applying the basic logic, the arithmetic logic of inverses here to obtain these numbers. Now, we've talked about multiplication and division in the context of fortunes and debts. So, or in the context rather of just fortunes. So the product or quotient of two debts is one fortune. The product or quotient of two debts is one fortune. And so we've talked about how the product of two fortunes pretty clearly yields a greater fortune. We're scaling along the positive edge of the number line in the context of dollar amounts. And we've now established also that subtracting a debt from zero is just a logical way, sort of a predication that is additive in nature. It's an additive scalar, because we're really just talking about the amount. Okay? The minus in this case is a reference to the position on the number line. However, in the arithmetic operation, it's a procedure that's being conducted on the positive edge of the number line. The product or quotient of two debts is a fortune. Okay? So the product of two debts, debt number one, debt number two, which by substitution, we obviously get these values, these exact values. These are numbers, not variables, although the subscripts, are basically just indices. But these are actual values, minus f sub m minus f sub n. The product of two debts is a fortune. Okay? Now, why is that? Because a negative value subtracted from 0, as we've established, is a positive value. A debt subtracted from 0 yields a positive value. Well, if we do that by arithmetic of scaling or multiplying production, we're just going to get a greater and greater profit amount. So if a debt of $2.50 subtracted from 0 yields $2.50, well, let's say we do that twice. We multiply that by, or even itself for that matter, meaning that value itself amount of times yields simply a greater dollar amount. And in fact, that amount, suppose I'll just do it here quickly. Oops. Okay. $6.25. Now the same is true for the quotients, for division. Okay, so, and as we established previously, division is really just a sort of reductionary scalar function. But if you're doing this in the context of positive values, profit values, fortune values, you're going to end up with a smaller fortune, a smaller positive number. So let's think it through. The quotient of two debts is a fortune. So here, now we're discussing this case. I've got my two debts, I've got my substituted values, and I end up with a positive value. Let's say I start with, again, a debt of $2.50. All right. Let's say negative $2.50 divided by really any other positive number, let's say, then what do I end up with? Well, I have I have a debt of $2.50, and dividing it by any positive number yields, of course, that debt distributed over the amount of debtors, I suppose. Now, if I say a debt of $2.50 divided by itself, divided by a debt of $2.50, a debt of $2.50 divided by a debt of $2.50, I end up with a value, a positive value. Just the number of distributions to the debtors. Let's just see if we can clean that up a little bit. So the quotient of two debts is a fortune. The quotient of two debts is a fortune. And we're just thinking in terms of the logic of inverses here, again, to produce an intuition for what's going on. Right. So, and as we established previously, division, in some sense, is really just shorthand notation for a sort of reductionary scalar function on the x-axis. So subtraction along the x-axis. And in the context of dividing positive numbers, it's a reduction of values down to 0. So division between negative values, or debts, it's a production of values up to 0. And then finally, as previously established, 0 minus a debt, or a value, yields a profit or a positive value.